Hi, today I am going to explain a horror, sci-fi movie called A. Morgan. Spoilers ahead. Watch out and take care. The movie opens in a remote laboratory that belongs to a biotech company named Synsect.aa. They specialize in developing advanced and highly complex human-like high beings under a secret via a project named L9. The scientists in this particular lab have put in several years of hard work to come up with a fourth-generation I being named Morgan. Despite barely being 5 years old, A. Morgan has already grown up to resemble a younger woman. The staff used to take her to the woods around the lab while she was younger. However, the Synsect administration ordered them to stop the unauthorized nature visits. Morgan is now forced to spend most of her time inside a glass room. One day, a lab staff member, Dr. Kathy Griefa, enters the room to have lunch with Morgan. She sets up the plates while the examines her own hands curiously. Kathy says that she has been contacting the administration, asking them to change their decision on the nature visits, but they haven't given any positive reply on the issue. Out of nowhere, Morgan pushes aside the plates on the table, jumps on it, and proceeds to stab Kathy. But before any more damage is done, two doctors rush inside the room and sedate Morgan. The security footage of this incident is then sent to the Synsect headquarters. To further analyze the whole thing, the administration decides to send a risk management specialist, Lee Weathersett, to the laboratory. She soon arrives at a rural location where Tata Brenner, the project manager, welcomes her. Ted offers her a tour of the whole place, but she politely declines. Shortly afterwards, Lee goes to her room where Dr. Amy Menzer, the project's behavioral expert, is waiting for her. They discuss their respective work fields and we get a brief glimpse into the personality of each woman. Amy is friendly while Lee is an unyielding and strictly buzziness type of person. Their conversation is cut short because of this and Amy soon leaves the room. Later, Lee comes down to the kitchen and meets the team's chef, Skip Vronsky. He is the only one here who doesn't have a degree in some sort of scientific field. Ted then accompanies the visitor to Kathy's room, where her recovery is being monitored. Lee asks if she could have a moment in private with Kathy to discuss the events surrounding the attack. Despite being in a bad state with one of her eyes still patched, Kathy claims that she is feeling quite good. She says that Morgana used to be happy and gentle until the company decided to lock her inside the glass room. Following this, Lee meets Dr. Simon Ziegler, the chief genetic engineer on Project L9. He explains the nature of their work and how they use synthetic DNA alongside nanotechnology. Simon adds that their first 3 experiments failed as the I beings developed several physical and mental disorders. But Morgana is their most successful as well as complex achievement. Because of the rapid growth rate, Morgan could already walk and talk barely a month after her so-called birth. According to Simon, Morgan is everything they have hoped for. A hybrid biological organism that can think and feel. She even looked like a grown young woman after her first birthday. Then, Simon shows Lee the incident footage but quickly adds that it was a singular event which has never happened before. He insists that the project is still headed in the right direction and they will learn from their mistakes. After a while, Lee is taken to the glass room where she meets Morgan personally. The visitor is kept outside the room for protection because of the recent incident. Morgan, however, seems to be far from a volatile being. She is polite and friendly. In fact, she even apologizes for hurting Kathy, claiming that it was unintentional. Later, when everyone has left, Morgan sits down in a corner and recalls fond memories of her and Amy in the woods. It is obvious that she feels most comfortable with Amy, who treats her more like a sister than a prototype. Later, Lee joins the team for dinner and meets the other members, the married couple Dr. Darina and Dr. Brenda Finch. She is also greeted by Dr. Louis Chang, the head of Project L9, whom Morgana considers as her mother. Lee then explains that her job is to assess risk against the company's profit. To everyone's dismay, she refers to Morgan as an object rather than someone who has feelings. She brings up a similar project in Helsinki, where prototypes killed 21 researchers. But Simon interrupts and says that Morgan is much more advanced than the older prototypes. Later that night, Lee and Skip share a conversation over some drinks. He tells her about the dynamics between the people in the laboratory. It turns out that he and Amy used to have a fling in the past and may have also slept with each other. Skip, however, makes it clear that he is not dating anyone at the moment. Slightly drunk, he then makes a move and kisses Lee but quickly apologizes for it. The latter looks embarrassed and the two awkwardly say goodnight. Meanwhile, Amy walks over to Morgan's room to spend some time with her. She disables Thea cameras before approaching Morgan's cell to remind her about the psychological test tomorrow. Amy assures her that everything will turn out fine so long as she stays true to herself. The two then lay their hands on the glass as an act of sisterly love and affection. To ease Morgan's worries, Amy tells her about the beautiful Lake Navarra and promises to take her there someday. This prompts Morgan to get a flashback of her and Amy out in the woods on a sunny day. Morgan sees an injured deer not far from where they are and notices that the poor animal is impaled on a branch. She approaches it and caresses it gently, but then she suddenly breaks its neck as an act of mercy. In the next scene, Morgan's psychological analysis arrives and it's going to be conducted by Dr. Ben Shapiro. He is supposed to see outside the room while examining Morgan. But he thinks that the interaction will be pointless. Ben claims that it is his job to build trust with the subject and decides to enter the room despite the team's warnings. He then sits across from Morgan and is surprised that she knows his name as well as the reason for his visit. Nonetheless, Ben asks Morgan the reason behind her recent gloomy mood, to which she replies that it's because of the incident with Kathy. Thea makes Ben realize that the is capable of feeling remorse after doing something terrible. He then questions Morgan about her life inside the room and how she feels about being locked up. When Morgan says that she is pleased, he begins to up the ante by throwing more hurtful questions. Ben points out that Thea people in the lab are not her friends, also they have locked her inside this room. In the middle of their conversation, Ben decides to go all in to check how the AI handles extremely hated situations. He starts raising his voice while asking how Morgan would react if he recommended the doctors to terminate her. Unexpectedly, Morgan sheds a tear and reaches her breaking point after these hurtful words. She looks at her hands and pushes Ben against the wall before lunging at him. She then bites hard into his throat and rips a chunk out, leaving the doctor in a bloody mess. Immediately, the whole team is alerted by the commotion. And Darren attempts to sedate Morgana once again, but she uses Ben as a shield and eventually knocks Darren to the ground. Lee, who has been watching this, tries to calm her down, but then the lights go out, giving Morgan an opportunity to escape. Lee quickly grabs a tranquilizer to prevent the from going too far away. However, Morgan soon emerges to the outside world and sees Amy waiting for the evaluation results. She feels a sense of comfort upon seeing Amy, but this happy moment is abruptly ended when Lee sedates her. When Morgan regains consciousness, she finds herself back inside the lab and immediately apologizes for her actions. The team of doctors debates on what to do with her and what is best for the company. Dr. Lewin, the chief of this project, is adamant on terminating Morgan. Willie Simon wants to give it another try. However, the chief remains unmoved on her decision, prompting a devastated Simon to walk away. Later, the whole team gets emotional, Willie preparing the termination procedure. Morgana has grown close to their hearts and has been a part of their daily routine. The AI pleads with everyone in the room not to kill her, even calling for her mother, Dr. Louis. This makes the chief emotional, but she simply apologizes to Morgan before walking away. Following this, Morgan is given sedatives which soon knock her unconscious. Simon and Dr. Louis walk away, unable to bear what is about to come. Darren, who is tasked with administering a lethal solution in Morgan, also changes his mind and leaves the lab with his wife. Without the medical team in sight, Leah decides to put an end to Projectile 9 herself. But Ted stops her. Lee hits him in the face and holds him at gunpoint. But right then, Amy shoots her with a sedative, causing her to doze off. When Lee regains consciousness, she finds herself locked inside Morgan's room, with Ted standing outside. She commands him to let her out before the higher-ups arrive. But he ignores the threats. In the next scene, Amy, Ted, Brenda, and Darren gather supplies to get Morgan out of the lab safely. Darren then tries to wake up but suddenly all hell breaks loose. Morgan appears to have a completely different personality as she headbutts Darren in the face. She then grabs the lethal injection and sticks it in his chest, ultimately killing him. Frightened, Ted holds a gun to her face, but Morgan manages to grab the weapon and shoots him instead. She then mercilessly finishes him off as Leah watches on from inside the glass room. Outside, Brenda loads the supplies in her car and instructs Skip to be ready to leave. The latter is confused, but he soon sees Morgan letting Amy out of the laboratory. He immediately senses that something bad is happening and runs back to the building to look for Lee. As Brenda reunites with Amy, she asks about her husband's whereabouts, but the frightened woman cannot utter a word. This is when the AI suddenly points a gun at Brenda from behind. The doctor realizes what is happening and tries to spring a quick attack. However, Morgan's strength remains unmatched, and she eventually beats Brenda to death. Hungry for revenge, Morgan makes her way to Thea's residential quarters where she sees Kathy. Thea, a poor woman, tries to approach Morgan in a friendly way, only to get brutally kicked to death. Meanwhile, Lee manages to climb to the top of the room through an air vent and escapes by breaking through the glass sunroof. She sees Skip outside, who is still shaken by the devastating deaths of his colleagues. Lee, on the other hand, is extremely calm and instructs him to grab a weapon. It is obvious that there is more to Lee than what meets the eye. Back at the residential quarters, Dr. Luna records a video, detailing Thea events that took place right now. But before she can finish, Morgan enters the room. Approaches her mother and even gives her a kiss on the forehead. In a shocking twist, she then suffocates her, and this murder is caught on camera. Sometime later, Lee arrives at the residential quarters, only to find the lifeless Simon hung from her cabinet. She looks around the area when suddenly Morgan emerges from one of the corners to attack her. They get into a fierce brawl, taking turns at throwing each other across the room. As the fight progresses, Morgan launches herself at Lee, but both of them fall out of the window and land on the car parked below. There, Skip tries to stop Morgan, but Shane knocks him down and drives out of the area with Amy. A determined Lee then gets in her car as well and frantically chases after the fugitive. She soon catches up to Morgan, but the latter manages to bump her car and forces it to crash onto a big tree. An increasingly desperate Amy begs Morgan to stop, but the is hell-bent on escaping to freedom. On the other hand, Lee somehow manages to survive the crash with nothing but a few scratches. Skip soon arrives in his car and claims to know where Morgan and Amy are headed. Elsewhere, in the nearby forest, Morgan takes Amy to Lake Navarre, a journey she had awaited for so long. Thea claims she won't harm her, but Amy remains vigilant with a weapon tucked under her jacket. Soon enough, Morgan sees the lake and sheds a tear of joy, experiencing true freedom for the first time in her life. Meanwhile, Lee grabs Skip's rifle and goes to the jungle to kill Morgan herself. She doesn't want to waste too much time and fires a shot in the air. This is enough to grab Morgan's attention, who also decides to return to the woods and finish Lee for good. Shortly after, the two come head to head and a fierce brawl breaks out. They throw numerous punches at each other, but Morgan eventually pushes Leah into a trunk. She gets impaled by a branch, a sight that is hauntingly similar to the deer that Morgan had killed mercifully. However, this time, Morgan decides to walk away, leaving her opponent to bleed out toward death. She soon returns to the lake and tries to run away with Amy. But in a shocking twist, Lee arrives at the spot, seemingly unhurt except for a few scratches. She pushes Morgan into the lake and holds her underwater until she stops moving. Lee then takes the pistol from Amy and shoots her in the head. Following this, she drags herself back to the spot where Skip had parked the car. Leah shockingly shoots him as well, effectively killing the last member of Project Hell 9. In the aftermath of this event, Sinsect head, Gemma Bryce, discusses the incident with other board members and declares the Project Hell 9 a failure. We then see Lee Weathers in a local restaurant, calm and expressionless as usual. Rather curiously, she examines her hands, a gesture similar to Morgan's. The movie comes to an end as we finally learn that she's also a bioengineered being, specifically designed needed to carry out orders without any emotion.
Hearts dancing in the dark. Your eyes a lighthouse spark. Moon's a silver arc, guiding us through the park. Hand in hand we stroll, feeling young and whole. Stars like diamonds glow in this love untold. Moonlit whispers in the night, hold me close and hold me tight. Every breath a sweet delight. words like velvet touch. Silence never meant so much. All these dreams we clutch. In this moment there's no rush. Every step we take, every smile